Hello and welcome to today's lesson. I'm your hard-working but individual teacher, Mr. Burton. You will need to watch this video and take notes as you go. You may need to watch certain parts of the video a few times to ensure you get understanding. This is your homework and I will check your notes tomorrow before we get started. I hope you learn something.
Okay, hello and welcome to today's topic, and this is price elasticity of demand, and this topic informs us a little bit more about the demand curve. Price elasticity of demand.
Price elasticity of demand describes how changes in the cost of a product or service affect a company's revenue. For some products, a change in price will dramatically influence how many units the customer will buy. In other cases, price movements have little effect on demand. Therefore, understanding the price elasticity of each offering is crucial to maximizing profit. To calculate elasticity, divide the percentage change in quantity demanded by the percentage change in price. Usually the number will be negative, as price decreases generally induce shoppers to buy more of the product. A number between 0 and 1 indicates an inelastic good. In other words, the customer is relatively unaffected by the new price. Numbers above 1 indicate elastic demand, where shopping behavior changes significantly. Several factors can affect the price elasticity of products. For example, if substitute goods are readily available, the customer will immediately curtail purchases when the price rises. And if the good represents a major part of the buyer's total spending, he or she will be more likely to shop based on price. A new car fits into both of these categories and therefore represents elastic demand. If an automaker dramatically increases its pricing, the customer is likely to shop different makes or hold off on his or her purchase altogether. By contrast, public transportation consumers have few alternatives. Many train or bus riders don't have a car, so moderate changes to the fare will have relatively little impact on how often they ride. Understanding how consumers value a product can be vital for any company. Raising prices can be one of the easiest ways to boost profits, but only if consumers are willing to accept the added cost.
Okay, so price elasticity of demand. We know that quantity demand will change as the price change, and price elasticity of demand will be informative of exactly how much that quantity demanded will change. The way we calculate price elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. Now the exam tip you need to remember is that the queen is always above price. So Q above P, quantity demanded over is above price. An example calculation here. So if the price of good A decreases by 10%, the quantity demanded increases by 12.5%. What's the price elasticity of demand? All we have to do, 12.5 divided by 10, and the price elasticity of demand pops out at 1.25. Now, essentially, we take absolute values. Every single price change will give us a negative number, so it's not informative. So if the price increases, quantity demanded decreases. They go in the opposite rate. There's a negative relationship. Price decreases, quantity demanded increases. Again, the relationship is negative. So we always just take the absolute value. We forget about the negative sign. It's not important. It's not informative. Okay, sometimes an exam question will give you the question in numeric terms, and then you're going to have to go away and convert everything into percentages. So here we have everything's in numeric terms. We've got the price in dollars. That's not a percentage change in the price is in dollars. The quantity demand change is in units. It's not a percentage change. So we have to go and work those percentages out before we start. So the percentage change of price, 10 minus 9 divided by 10. Remember, the percentage change formula is new minus old divided by the old, or new minus original over the original, times by 100, because it is a percentage. So the change in price works out to be 10%, and a percentage change in quantity demanded, we work that out in exactly the same manner, and that turns out to be negative 20%. It's a decrease in quantity demanded as the price increases. But again, the negative number is not informative, so we get rid of it, just take the absolute value. Price elasticity of demand turns out to be 20% divided by 10%, which gives us the value of 2, the coefficient of 2. We can do the same thing. We can do that directly from the demand curve. So initial price of $7, that decreases to 5. We go away and work out a percentage change there. As the price decreases, quantity demanded increases from 15 to 25 units. We go away, we work out the percentage change there. Once we have our percentage change for price and percentage change for quantity demanded, then we can plug that into the formula, price elasticity of demand. We've got the percentage change in quantity demanded on the top, and we divide that by the percentage change in price. So, and that turns out to be 2.33. So far, we've been able to work out the price elasticity of demand values, but what do they mean? If the number, the coefficient, the value that we work out is between 0 and 1, so it's greater than 0, less than 1, we're talking about inelastic demand. And here we interpret that as being the change in quantity demand is relatively unresponsive to changes in price. So the change in price, the percentage change there, is greater than the percentage change in quantity demanded. So price could increase by 10%, and if demand is inelastic, then the quantity demanded will decrease by less than that 10%. And we're looking at a demand curve that's shaped like this. It's got a very steep slope. This is inelastic demand. The change in quantity demanded is relatively unresponsive to changes in prices. Now, price elasticity of demand is greater than 1 but less than infinity. Then we're talking about elastic demand. The change in quantity demand is relatively responsive to changes in price. So the price change, the percentage, is relatively small compared to the percentage change in quantity demanded. So for example, price could increase by 10%, and if demand is elastic, then quantity demanded is going to decrease by more than that 10%. The demand curve is relatively flat. This is elastic demand. And we have a few special values of price elasticity of demand which we need to consider as well. The first of these being where price elasticity of demand equals 1, we call this unit elastic demand. Now here the change in quantity demand is exactly proportional to changes in price. So if prices increase by 10%, quantity demand will decrease by 10%, exactly the same. If prices decrease by 15%, quantity demanded would increase by 15%. It's exactly proportional, and we have the smooth curved shaped demand curve. So describes a demand curve which is perfectly responsive to changes in price. Price elasticity of demand equals 0. This is perfectly inelastic. Quantity demand is completely unresponsive to changes in price. So for example, if the price got bumped up by 10%, the quantity demanded would not change at all. infinite price elasticity of demand. We're talking perfectly elastic demand. The quantity demanded is infinitely responsive to changes in price. So any increase in price, then the quantity demanded is going to fall right back to nothing. And we have this perfectly elastic horizontal demand curve. So perfectly elastic demand, quantity demand is infinitely responsive to changes in price. Any increase in price, any attempt by firms to increase the price will result in their consumers buying zero of their products. So if one producer raises its prices, consumers are going to immediately switch and purchase from other firms supplying the market. Now, what determines the value of price elasticity of demand? What determines whether it's elastic or inelastic? The first is the number and closeness of substitutes. If a product has a lot of close substitutes, then one producer trying to raise the price of their good, consumers are immediately going to switch out into another substitute. The price of Pepsi goes up, consumers immediately switch out to Coke. Necessities versus luxuries. Necessities are those things that we need to survive. We're talking food, shelter, warmth. A necessity would be an example. Electricity would be an example of a necessity. So absolutely essential for us to have, to heat, to light our homes. If the price of electricity goes up, then the quantity demand is going to be relatively unresponsive. The length of time. The shorter the length of time, the more difficult it is for consumers to alter their purchasing behaviours, to find substitutes or change their behaviours in line with the price increases. So for example, if the price of petrol goes up, electric cars become far more attractive, but it takes quite a while for a consumer to be able to sell their old car, save up the money to buy the new electric car. Right. In the short term, price elasticity of demand is very inelastic, but the longer that time period becomes, the more chance there is for consumers to change their behaviour, change their purchasing, and the greater the elasticity of the demand curve becomes. And finally, the proportion of income spent. If a good does not cost that much, then the proportional change, the percentage change in price is not going to take a big chunk out of the consumer's budget. So if a good costs $1, like a bottle of salt, a packet of salt costs $1, a large increase, say 20%, is only going to be a 20-cent increase that the consumer has to bear. So proportions of income that are small are relatively price inelastic, whereas those purchases that take up a big chunk, a big proportion of a consumer's income, say a new car or a holiday, then those goods tend to be rather elastic. Another very important concept to consider is that price elasticity changes as we go along the demand curve. In the top half of the demand curve, prices are high, quantity demanded is low, the demand curve is price elastic. And in the lower half of the demand curve, prices are low and the quantity demanded is high. Demand is price inelastic. And if we go through and we did these calculations ourselves, we could see that in this instance, at the lower half, price elasticity demand is just 0.25, which we know from our elasticity interpretations is very price inelastic. In the midpoint of the demand curve, price elasticity is demand is 1, so price increase is proportional to the change in quantity demanded. And in the top half, price elasticity of demand becomes elastic. So the bottom half, an elastic portion of the demand curve, and the top half of the demand curve, we have the elastic part of the demand curve. And it's just simply the way price elasticity of demand values are calculated. Price changes are relatively small at the top half of the curve, and a change in quantity demand is relatively large, because we're talking percentages, where at the other end, the opposite. A very important consideration here for firms and businesses and the effects of changes in price on their total revenue. Now, total revenue is calculated by the price of the goods sold multiplied by the quantity of that goods sold. So we're talking total revenue equals price times quantity. So moving down the demand curve, total revenue continues to increase as the price decreases up until a point where price elasticity of demand equals 1. Total revenues maximize here where price elasticity of demand equals 1. As we pass that point, we move further down the demand curve, price elasticity of demand becomes inelastic and total revenue starts to decrease with further price decreases beyond this point where price elasticity of demand equals 1. So that proves to us that total revenue is maximized where price elasticity of demand equals 1. Okay, if we have elastic demand, an increase in price results in decreased total revenue, and a decrease in price increases total revenue. Now we can see that here. A firm's total revenue is calculated price times quantity demanded, and we can calculate that off the demand curve. We're given the price, we know the quantity demanded, this will be the total revenue. A price increase with a relatively elastic demand curve, you can see the flat slope of the demand curve, we know it's relatively price elastic. We can see that a 5% increase increases revenues by a little bit, but we can also see that lots more revenue is lost by an increase in price. So here we have a price increase with elastic demand curve is a bad idea if a firm wants to be is concerned about the total revenues. So the revenue gained by an increase in price is smaller than the revenue lost by an increase in price if the demand curve is elastic, relatively flat. And it's the opposite with an inelastic demand curve and the total revenue. We can see an inelastic demand curve here. The demand curve is relatively steep. So with inelastic demand, an increase in price results in increased total revenue, and a decrease in price and decreased total revenue. Again, total revenue, price times quantity demanded. Read straight from the demand curve. We have a price increase, a large price increase here, 25%, and we know that it's price inelastic because the quantity demanded, the change there is relatively small. So there's a large increase in total revenue gained from the price increase, with relatively little revenue being lost as quantity demanded decreases. So the revenue gained by the increase in price more than offsets the revenue lost by an increase in price. And given a change in total revenue, we can work out what the price elasticity of demand is, whether it's elastic, inelastic, or something else. So price increases, and we see that total revenue decreases. We're talking demand is price elastic. A price decrease, total revenue increases. Again, demand is price elastic. Now, the opposite, we're talking price inelastic. When we see a price increase, that results in total revenue increases. Immediately we can say we're looking at an inelastic demand curve, and the opposite of that, if we have a price decrease and total revenue decreases, demand becomes price inelastic. Now, if we get a price increase or a price decrease and nothing changes with total revenue, then we know that we have a unit elastic demand. So for elastic goods, total revenue moves in an opposite direction to price. Price increase, total revenue decreases. Price decreases, total revenue increases. For inelastic goods, it's the opposite. Total revenue moves in the same direction to price. A price increase, total revenue increases. Price decrease, total revenue decreases.